Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scrollies Podcast live here at Ratcon 2022. I am Squat Cobbler, your host, joined by...
Hey, it's me, Team Ratnado. I'm dummy thick at Ratcon.
We're all dummy thick at Ratcon, including our very special guest here...
Hey, it's me, Crash and the Boys. I wasn't sure if you were going to give me the introduction, or if I was just trying to follow you.
You're good.
Crash and the Boys here at Ratcon. Enjoyed it. First Scrollies appearance. Been long-time listener, first-time guest. Very excited.
We're glad to have you here, Crash. Always a pleasure to have an expert, quote-unquote, on the series we're covering. The topics today, a very special one for all three of us. Metal Gear. Specifically, when should Metal Gear Solid have ended? We're going to get into it, folks. We're going to go through the series game by game, starting with Metal Gear Solid 1, and talk about it a little bit. We're going to say, maybe here, maybe there. We'll get into it.
And we're going to get into that. We're probably not getting into the memes, but it'll be good either way.
The memes. But before we get into that, Crash and the Boys, what was your first Metal Gear game?
My first Metal Gear game was Metal Gear Solid.
Hey!
I got it for the PSN on the PS3. I played it in about 3 sittings, absolutely loved it. And I remembered, it's genuinely the game I've played the most times through. It's my most played game, followed right behind Uncharted 2. I played that one through a lot as well. But one of my favorite memories of Metal Gear Solid was I was sick from school one day in high school. I was just like, Mom, I feel bad. I hardly ever call out, but I can't go in today. She's like, okay. And so she had to go take care of errands, and I just played through the entire game in one full-on sitting, just being completely sick, knowing it pretty well by that point, just the back of my hand, and just seeing it all through. It's a game I absolutely adore. Should have ended there. End of podcast.
You just mean like it should have ended that day, like that was good.
All right. Ratnado, how about yourself? When did you first encounter a snake?
Well, actually, mine is pretty similar. My best friend, well, maybe not my best friend, he was a good friend. His name was Trevor. I believe it was 3rd grade. And I remember we were playing at recess. And he was telling me about this really cool new game that was only on PlayStation. And hey, we gotta go to my house and play it after school. Of course, I was like, okay, Trevor, let me check with my mom. Except for maybe I didn't check, but she still didn't get mad at me. Thank you, Mom. And we went over there, and I saw this crazy game.
Yeah?
Yeah. I remember the stealth of it all was like super weird, super scary. But that was like my awakening into the stealth genre. And to this day, I still play them because they're still really good.
All right. Well, fellas, big shock here. My first Metal Gear game was Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
You're kidding, right?
I'm kidding. That's where I first met Solid Snake. But in the Metal Gear series proper, I was not introduced until Metal Gear Solid 1, my very first game that I ever played on stream. First Throwback Thursday game that I played on stream, I should say.
Right.
Played that with Crash and the Boys. Likeness right here, Doobie Teen. Great Ape rest his soul. He's no longer with us. But he was there guiding me through that game.
Well, until he wasn't.
So, well, brother. If you know, you know.
Brother.
But, yeah, Metal Gear Solid. It's a series that means a lot to each and every one of us. You know, we're all big fans, so, yeah.
It might be my favorite series.
It might be his favorite series.
Of all time. Wow.
I think maybe more than Zelda, but the only thing is now that it's ended, with Zelda keep going, Zelda might eventually take over.
They can surpass it, right?
But just the story arc, just all the different characters, all the games, it's definitely like
Yeah, no, I agree. It does, okay, and so it does a lot of the stuff that I really like, a lot of weird stuff. Hideo Kojima, whether you believe he's a genius or not, he's got the juice, or he had the juice when he had the passion for it. And yeah, I don't know. There's something about it. It's a little bit mature. It's a little bit back, like childish still, despite being adult. And Squat Cobbler kind of has that unique perspective. You and I, Crash, you and I have both played this. We grew up with it. We're kind of like, it's a little bit weeby, right?
Yeah, like I subscribed to Otaku USA, and I found out about otakus through Otacon, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's my Japanese animes.
It's like what a like Japanese database. That's a Plaidman impression. Not
No, it's definitely, it's weird because it's such an American style of game. Like, it's all that military, Russia, over, but it's all through this very Japanese lens.
Yeah.
Which, I think, the big ones are like America, like a bunch of different countries.
Yeah.
Big ones are, Japan and America, and just seeing the difference between the two, you really get a different impression. And so it's very much a Wii game. If you play Metal Gear Solid 4, which I'm sure we'll talk about later,
Of course.
you get some real Wii stuff in that,
Yes.
But I think it's one that I can play in front of my dad, and he's not like super disappointed until he sees a couple of scenes. He'll be like, "Oh, what's this? You're like a military guy? Yeah, that's
cool.
all. That's all it is." No, why am I holding the controller so steady? I just no reason.
Oh no!
We'll get into that. But fellas, let's start going through these games. Starting with Metal Gear Solid 1.
Number 1
on the PlayStation. It's one that starts the Metal Gear Solid series, but does not start the Metal Gear series.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Not
The
the
first two
beginning.
games on the MSX, not to be confused with Sega's Master System.
The Sega Master System, the first video games ever in 3D. Sega's the one.
Which you all knew out there, of course, right?
Which you all knew out there. No, it's the something.
The MSI, Master System.
Yeah, it's some Sony computer system. But yeah, the first two games were on there, featuring Solid Snake fighting Big Boss. 2 separate missions. I haven't played these games, so I can't really talk too much about them, but...
I would have hoped you would have, because I was going to ask you, because you're a connoisseur of older games. You played that.
I like me some
you
retro.
like your throwbacks.
Yeah.
Your retro.
Yeah.
Only through the lens of Super Smash Bros.
That's fair.
Well, now you can, because he's a Smash Bros. Character. But I was going to say, I played them, and I found it almost impossible to play without a walkthrough.
Really?
Interesting. Yeah, there was some part where you had to break down 3 doors, and you just had to keep punching. I would have just been stuck.
You wouldn't know that.
completely,
Yeah, I got you.
without it. So I'm one of those people who, if I see a game and I want to play it, I might have to go to a walkthrough just to see it through. And I'm glad I did. And now, kind of knowing what you have to do, I might be able to play it without, but just that first time. Metal Gear 2, way better than Metal Gear.
Yeah.
But there's something fun about, I'm right outside the enemy's direct line of sight.
Yeah.
I'm safe. It's fun that way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all the time. And the music's great.
Music is so good.
The music has been a standout of the series, and even from the very beginning, I would say.
In 1985, is that? 1987? Something like. In the 80s, he was already by himself, coding this entire game together, basically pretty much alone. Writing the story, making the music, doing everything. Incredible.
Making it cinematic.
It's really solid. The codec, it's fun. It's got some good twists. The boss encounters are probably the highlight throughout the whole series, but even those first ones, they were pretty special.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone of us would agree the series should have ended there, because, they were still working out the kinks, old game jank and all that. They had nowhere to go but up.
You mentioned games that went from 2D to 3D and the awkwardness of the transition, and I think Metal Gear is one of those series where it is a perfect debut to a 3D series. There, you've played it, you might say there's a little bit of controller jank or whatever.
A little bit, yeah, sure, now.
But I think just all in all, it is it knows what it's going for, and each subsequent game just kind of adds on top of it. I think it was really well done.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, moving on, Metal Gear Solid intended to be the end of the series, right? It was supposed to be a trilogy, I guess you could say, at the time.
I think they were all supposed to be the
We'll
get there.
We'll get into that. You might notice a trend going on here. But when it first came out, Metal Gear Solid, the third game in the Metal Gear series, and it wraps up the character of Snake. He comes out of retirement after having been to war, having defeated Big Boss to stop nuclear destruction caused by the aftermath of his actions.
Yeah.
Sneaking around Shadow Moses, he uncovers some truths about himself, about his relation to Big Boss and to Liquid, and
Just who Master Miller is.
Just who Master Miller is.
Great twist.
Oh yeah, I did not see it coming. I should have the whole time, especially with my partner playing that.
Spoilies, by the way.
Oh, full-blown spoilers for
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to say it's probably been, how many years? 25 years ago? If you haven't played it by now, first of all, boo on you. Why haven't you? It's great. At least go to YouTube. Watch the movie of it. Watch a cut of it.
That is half the game.
That is half the game. Yeah. You're still missing a lot, but no, it's great. Go do it. And spoiler. We should say that from here on out.
I would say every mainline Metal Gear Solid title is worth playing.
I agree.
Including Peace Walker.
I agree. We're getting ahead of ourselves again, but not chronologically getting ahead of ourselves. Just release
order. The order, all of you might have played this if you were growing up with it.
I could talk a full hour just gushing about Metal Gear Solid, how much I love it, what it did great, just how good. The moment when you're in the elevator and the Otacon profile changes, the King of the Pants, Sniper Wolf, the everything. But I feel like you guys want a little bit more of a focused topic, so what did you guys think about it?
So, great game. Could the series have ended at Metal Gear Solid? I'd say yes, it could have, but it would not have peaked.
Hindsight 2020, I think it would have been a really solid end. You get two, like lesser known titles, like, oh yeah, I've heard of them, whatever. And then you get one phenomenal game on the PlayStation. Wow, I gotta go back and play these to get the full story. And like I said, it's the game I played the most times. It's like endless replayability, even with the virtual missions and stuff.
Yeah.
It's such a solid story. It's contained, because like I said, that was the first game I played. I still get it.
Yeah.
But knowing about Gray Fox and like Big Boss and all that stuff, it works very well as a trilogy.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree
I
as well.
think so. The great thing too, I mean, Plaidman86, if we ever get him to listen to Scrolly somehow, he would agree. He goes back and always, that was the best voice, the best time David Hayter has ever voiced Solid Snake, because he's got the gravel. He's got the gravel in his voice.
That's how you get a second question. You just repeat it as a question for
A
him.
question. Metal Gear. Yeah, exactly. I think it was great, and honestly, like that ultimately changed my whole vision of what games were, and what even movies were. Like the whole thing of even what I do when I'm streaming and trying to break the fourth wall and do funny things or whatever. Honestly, Hideo Kojima was kind of the reason for that. Of just how do I break this medium? How do I do something weird that nobody expects to happen? And how do I delight people to be I see what you're
doing. He was the first memer.
The memes.
Like when I play games, I often just try to push the bounds and try to test them and break them and see what would happen.
Yeah.
As a player, I'd try to interact with it in unusual ways and kind of really just see okay, well, what about this? What about this? And Hideo Kojima games, the ones I've played, are the first time it feels like the actual creator, the developers, are doing the same thing and think, okay, well, how much can we push the player?
Yeah.
And games have done that before and after the differing degrees, but definitely Metal Gear Solid was the first of oh wow, they can kind of get back. Just really toy with you and expectations, and it's a little gimmicky in the first Metal Gear Solid. It's I'm going to read your memory card. Yeah. But as the series goes on, it just goes more meta and more subtle, and also way more egregious and just in your face about it.
Yeah.
And that's something very unique to the story. And I'm very glad it didn't end there, because we get to see a lot more.
Right.
Yeah. I agree as well. It could have been an ending, but I think it's for the best that it wasn't, because especially from a gameplay perspective, it advanced the series quite a bit. I think from what I was being told when I was playing it, the original games had the cards weren't stackable, so you had to take out the numbered card every time you wanted to go through a door. Metal Gear Solid refined that, made them stackable. It made the item selection a lot more streamlined. However, it is still an old game. It suffers from some old game jank, and I especially had some trouble with that. Now, not all of that is the game's fault, but
by the fifth playthrough, you'll realize it's actually a perfect system, and there's nothing wrong with that game.
There's nothing wrong
outside of some mild sexism.
It's perfect.
I think the sequel, Metal Gear Solid 2, improved on the gameplay substantially.
But not subsistence.
Remarkably. Subsistently? Ratnado, talk a little bit about Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty.
Oh my gosh, Skazi was here earlier. They're out doing their thing right now, but shout out coming for being here, Skazi. His favorite Metal Gear and my personal favorite Metal Gear Solid game, and Metal Gear game altogether, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. I think the best, and I know that's a very hot take. Crash was looking at me like he did a little huh? Really? And that is, I think that's a hot take.
It's a hot take. Not as hot as you may think, but
Yeah.
I feel like the only hotter take you could have is Metal Gear Acid.
Metal Gear Acid, yeah. No, it is up there too. Metal Gear Solid 2, like you're saying, I mean, we jumped to the PS2. I've even played it on my PlayStation 2 now, like 3 years ago, and it was like, this looks amazing for 2001. How are you getting this? Huge jump in fidelity of like, just how it looks. The story to me, and maybe it's just because I love meta stuff so much, that it really like jumps in and it's doing a lot of weird things. And look up the theories. Go watch Super Bunny Hop. He's got some really great videos about like how the whole game maybe isn't actually happening.
Yeah, you've told me a little about this.
It's a postmodern thing where it's like, no, you are playing Raiden, who's playing a game, who's playing VR, and this isn't really happening, but the game knows it's happening, and blah, 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 and inwards and outwards. Maybe Kojima's crazy, or maybe he's brilliant. Maybe he's both. Who's to say?
Who's to say?
I think Kojima just has a lot of ideas. If you piece them together in a certain way, he's the most brilliant game maker ever.
If you look on the writers, okay, 1, 2, and 3. Well, I don't want to go too far ahead. 1, 2, and 3 are regarded as kind of the best of the series. If you look on there's another name that drops off after 3, Tomokazu Fukushima. I believe that's his name. And there are theories out there that he is the secret ingredient, the missing piece. Say what you will about the rest of the games, but that he was the one who kind of penned in Kojima, took his crazy ideas and say, cool, here's how we make that work so everyone else understands.
I don't think that worked though, because I feel like most people when talking about Metal Gear, they're like, I still don't understand.
Yeah, true.
By the time it gets to the lolly-lee-lay-loo,
lolly-lay-loo-lo.
But yeah, so actually I have a funny story about Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid was the first Metal Gear Solid game I played, but Metal Gear Solid 2 was not the second. I had asked my father, I was under 17 at the time, so I was not legally allowed to buy M-rated video games.
Right.
So I was like, Dad, you like Metal Gear Solid? It was a PlayStation 1 game, it was pretty tame, who cares, whatever. Gets to Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, I say, hey, can I get these games? He says, no.
Yeah.
I said, I could get the first one. He's like, no, you can't get those. I think he had a problem with Snake Eater. Was not a fan of that, he was just like, I don't like that. So I was just desperate to play them.
Yeah.
So a couple days later, I asked him if I could play the fourth one. It's
Guns of the Patriots. Yeah.
And so he saw that title. Oh, Guns of the Patriots. Well, you're allowed to watch Mel Gibson's The Patriot. Guns of the Patriot? Sure.
Same thing.
Go ahead. Which is a little funny because it probably is the most egregious of all the Metal Gear Solid games.
Trial by fire is what Crash and the boys had.
Really making use of that DualShock 3 6-axis motion. So I played Metal Gear Solid 4 and then eventually went back to Infinity.
Yeah, right.
During Christmas. Yeah. So I got the story a little bit out of sequence. But Metal Gear Solid 2 is a very solid game. I knew the Raiden twist going in, so I wasn't too thrown by that, and was able to just really appreciate it going in,
right?
Especially knowing how much of a badass Raiden become.
Yeah, exactly. You don't play as Solid Snake the whole time. Neither do you play as Cruelty-Free Snake, Diet Snake, Big Papa Snake. You don't play as any of them.
I think 2 does something really cool, though. It introduces the mission before the mission.
Right. Okay. I've said this before. I want all of you to understand, if you played Metal Gear Solid 2 really quick, like what you're talking about, the pre-mission, the tanker?
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't play the tanker, and then the plant, okay, if you do play it with it, it goes in, and Raiden in the beginning, he goes, I've completed blah, 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 blah missions, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't do it...
Don't play the tanker.
If you don't play the tanker, which is the Solid Snake 2 years, 3 years before the game happens, the full game, he doesn't say that.
What does he say?
He just doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything about completing anything. But if you do, he's like, I've completed whatever missions. I feel like some kind of legendary mercenary. Couple that with what he says about in the end of the game about like... about the S3 plan and all that stuff, the idea that he's basically saying, I'm playing a game. This is the VR that I'm playing.
The Tanker chapter.
The Tanker chapter is part of that.
You know what's really crazy?
What?
I'm going to take it one level a little bit further.
Go.
I don't know if you know this, but Zone of the Enders, another Hideo Kojima game, had a demo.
Yeah.
The entire Tinker chapter was the demo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so people bought that game just to play the demo for the new Metal Gear Solid game. And they were under the impression that you were playing a Snake because the Tinker chapter has Snake.
Right.
Now, it's a little weird. I just think this is a usual coincidence. It's not like conspiracy.
Right.
But it's just a usual coincidence.
Yeah.
They have re-released Zone of the Enders, and I'm pretty sure, don't they have it VR?
Maybe.
I thought, right? Is
Probably.
it Zone of the Enders VR?
Probably.
So the VR mission that it got paired with is now in the actual VR game. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Is it not? Maybe I might be mistaken, but I thought for sure that Zone of the Enders, the new one, was VR.
Probably. I just don't know. Hey, we're showing how stupid we are right
I'm gonna
now.
look it up.
While he's doing that, these two have been more or less gushing about Metal Gear Solid 2. And from a mechanic standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, infinitely times better than Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear 2. I think even when I first started playing, I would show Doobie-Teen, oh look, I can just hug this wall and then I can just jiggle the stick around. Oh look, I'm looking around the camera. Oh, that's so much better than it was in the first one. From the tanker mission on where I'm just like, oh man, I can do this. I can look up and the birds poop on my face. I can shoot this thing and it reacts like it would physically on fire. Yeah, good stuff. But my one big gripe that I have yet to get over is Raiden. I understand, Jack, Mr. Raiden, Snake, Mr. pre-cyborg Swordmaster.
Any field experience?
No, not really.
War is a video game. What better way to raise the ultimate soldier?
He's supposed to be me, okay? I understand that. He's supposed to be some lame wannabe who wants to be a cool spy and sneak around, but he's just he's a wannabe. He's got no skill. He's trained. He's trained because he was a child soldier and he grew up playing simulations.
Yeah.
Just like me. But this game, Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty, makes Solid Snake so cool and says, "Hey, you see this guy? He's perfect. You don't get to play as him."
Yeah.
And I got into Metal Gear because I thought Snake was cool in Brawl. I thought he was cool in Metal Gear Solid, and I didn't have it spoiled for me. I didn't know that I was gonna be playing as Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Wow.
Somehow, some way, yeah, I avoided that spoiler. I read the Brawl trophies. Maybe it said it in there and I just forgot, but there you go. So I played the tanker mission. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm playing as Snake. I'm sneaking around. This is great. Oh, he's drowning in the ocean. Oh, 2 years later. Okay, all right. Oh, look, there's Snake. He's swimming up. Why has he got blonde? He's got like a blonde mullet? Okay, all right. What's his voice different? Okay, it's not to be Colonel. Oh. I'm not Snake.
Oh.
And for that reason, above all else, I just can't get over Metal Gear Solid 2. Why would they do that to me? Why would they do that to me?
Squat, that was the point.
I know that's the point, but I don't like it. Just because that was the point doesn't mean I have to like it. Subverting my expectations for a good reason, but it just I wanted to play a Snake, and I didn't play a Snake.
As a video game player, you would say, you can take the simulation of, the disappointment. We're out here, we bleed, we die. And you can shove it? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. However, Ratnado, among others, lots of articles, lots of video essays have explained to me why Metal Gear Solid 2 is some masterpiece, prophetic. It saw the future.
Although I think we have different views on exactly what about the future, if it's becoming more or less like Metal Gear 2.
Oh, I think Metal Gear Solid 2 got a lot of things really right. The whole thing with digital media, how we treat it like it's infinite, but it's not. How we keep just shoving meaningless fluff into data centers and networks and just all this. Like we think that it's just going to keep going infinitely, but at some point it's just going to reach a peak where there's too much and there's going to be a crash. I think that is spot on. Once that was explained to me and I realized, okay, that's what that's talking about. Like, wow, this game came out in 2001. That's insane. How'd they predict that?
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, but just because I think that the subtext is cool doesn't mean that I necessarily enjoy playing it as itself, because I'm Raiden and Raiden's kind of lame. Sorry.
I don't love Raiden. I mean, I think he's just fine, but what it's doing and the overall story, like, you get to look at Snake. That's what it's trying to do, is like, look at Snake. You're not him. He's cool.
Exactly.
And it does succeed in that. Like, I do remember playing that last part and be like, holy Snake is awesome. I suck. Intentional.
And you wouldn't get to play a Snake for a while.
I wouldn't get to play a Solid Snake again for a while. I think really it's just David Hayter. If David Hayter's voicing, even if it's a technically a different character, I'm like, okay, I'm playing Metal Gear.
Yeah, it's still Snake.
So you probably didn't want Metal Gear to end at Metal Gear Solid 2.
I think that Metal Gear Solid 2, while it was such a huge step up, I think that it just introduced so much that it would not have been a satisfactory end to finish it there, even though Kojima intended for that to be the end of the time.
It kind of feels like the start of a new trilogy almost.
It really does. It really does.
Like
It
maybe one
introduces
centered around
the
Raiden.
Patriots. Well, the Patriots weren't even mentioned in the first few games, right?
Only on second. That's where
In the second.
it's at the end.
Yeah. So it's Metal Gear Solid, no mention of the Patriots. I didn't know that was a thing. So yeah, I think with that introduction alone, along with
Lulu,
yeah. Solidus gets wrapped up. He gets teased at the end of Metal Gear Solid, so he's arc is brought to a close, or so we think there. I think there's just too many things that needed to be explained or needed to be followed up on that Metal Gear Solid 2 would not have been a satisfactory end. How about each of you?
I am in agreement. Metal Gear Solid 2 would not have been a satisfactory end. And just to speak on it real quick, because I don't know if I did. I like the game a lot. It's not my favorite. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that all the other games do so much more and have certain story beats that I like so much more. That, well, it's not a bad game. It's a very, very good game, and it has some really great moments, some of my favorite moments. It's just the other games in the series have so much more to me that it's one of my lesser. So I usually put it near the bottom, which is a little funny.
But you still like it.
I still love it. I love all of that.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, you already know I love this game. I think it's the best Metal Gear Solid, definitely, just for the story alone. Okay, here it is, 2002, I think. Little Rat finishes it. He's playing it on the big screen TV, and the ending, the call between Snake and Otacon. What's going on? The Patriots, who are they? And we've tracked them down. Oh, who are they? They're all dead. Wait, when? About 113 years ago.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's mind blowing. Like, what even?
My mind as a kid, I like, as like an 11, 12-year-old, holy shit, this is amazing. This was like, seriously, I've never been more like, since then I haven't been hit the same way with a shock. I mean, and then it couldn't have been as mysterious and cool as in my mind. We'll get there.
And you had ways to figure out till.
Yeah. And but that was seriously the coolest moment. I'm sorry I swore, by the way.
Moving on, my favorite of the whole series up to this point, Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater.
Hands down, the best video game theme song.
Snake Eater
ever.
is the best song. It should be in every game.
It's honestly like you watch the Oscars. No Time to Die wins for best original song. It's like, when is Metal Gear a Snake Eater gonna get its time in the spotlight? Because it is the best James Bond song. Like,
Oh yeah,
genuinely.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Like, unironically, it is. The lyrics don't really make much sense when you just read them, but like, yeah, it's just such a great tune. So yeah, those crescendos. It's Snake Eater, so good.
And so powerful because every time you climb a ladder for more than 2, maybe like 6 seconds, your mind just wanders there.
Oh yeah.
You can't help but just think of it. Whether in a video game or in real life. Sometimes if I'm going up a big old ladder, I just...
No, I get you. I get you completely.
But glad that's your favorite.
That's Metal Gear Solid 3. You know, hey, I still have a few games left. You know, I'll be a little less chatty in the latter half of this. But at this point in time, Metal Gear Solid 3 is my favorite of the series. And it doesn't have Solid Snake in it. And we talked about this a little bit in our top 5 characters. They brought Big Boss as the playable character, the villain, and that's, you know, for fans of the whole series, that's crazy. You know, you get to play as the bad guy from the first game as the hero of Metal Gear Solid 3. Whoa. Big Boss is cool. You know, he's got a bit of a different personality than Snake.
Not Big Boss at the time.
Jack. Yeah.
Naked Snake.
Becomes Big Boss at the
You
end.
haven't seen him, his journey into Big Boss.
No, he's been conferred the title, and that's all at this point in time. But
Yeah, because he's bigger than the boss.
he's bigger than the boss.
He beat the boss.
He beat the boss.
That might be my favorite.
Final boss.
Final boss.
Oh,
It's so good. In the
beautiful.
Field of Flowers. And this is all on PS2 still. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 really pushed the boundaries. But I mean, the fire effects fighting the Fury.
It's the Fury, right?
Yeah. The BFX fighting the Pain. And the end fight.
So good.
Amazing.
So good.
The fact that you can just wait for him to die naturally by just not playing for a few days. When I was playing, I saved right at that point. I came back to it and I was in jail because he tattled on me and they caught me. And I was like, what? So I had to break out again and then I had to fight him. But if you just wait, like, I think, a week, 10 days?
I think it's 2 weeks.
Yeah. He just dies. He just dies and you beat the boss.
Of old age.
Of old age.
Well, you don't beat the boss.
You don't beat the boss. You beat the end.
Not the end of the game.
Not the end of the game. Who's on
Boss
first?
the end.
Kojima!
Yeah, so boss fights in Metal Gear Solid 3 I think are some of my favorites in the whole series.
For sure.
And it was the first one to introduce free cam.
Well,
Really
not
cool.
originally.
Not originally. And Subsistence. And I played the HD PS3 version, which retained the camera.
Right.
Which, if you're interested in this series, the HD release is.
If you own a PS3, you can play the entire Metal Gear Solid series.
It's the best way to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can get a PS1, PS2, PS3, that's all you need for the whole game.
Just those 3
But if you
consoles.
can get just a PS3, you can play it, and I don't think it's too hard to find. Definitely worth playing. It was one of my favorites for a long while.
Absolutely. So, mechanically, story-wise, you get a classic spy thriller.
A lot of Godzilla shoutouts.
You got Godzilla shoutouts the first time you save. You got romance. You got action. It may not be the most deep of the series, like thematically. I think there's some stuff there, but it's not.
Character-wise, it's the deepest though. One of the
Perhaps the character arcs in that are fantastic. The relationships really well fleshed out. It really makes you look back and think on the whole experience when you beat it and you realize what was really going on the whole time.
There's also another character that we get at the beginning of that you haven't mentioned yet. Young Ocelot.
Yeah, that's right, Ocelot. We haven't talked about Ocelot at all. He's in more games than any iteration of Snake is in their own respective games. He might as well be the through line in the Metal Gear Solid series.
He kind of is. He
Genuinely.
really is. Yeah.
When you get to 5, you'll see.
When I get to 5, I'll see. Anyway, I can gush about Metal Gear Solid 3 all day. I loved it, and yeah, you guys, please share your thoughts.
Metal Gear was my original pitch. I wanted to do like a 3-hour long panel. I just wanted to go back and forth about what the best Metal Gear game it is, because we all have very different thoughts. I think if we were to rank them all, we would have very different placements for all the games.
Yes, for sure.
But the thing is about the series is that all of them would be valid.
Yeah.
Because it is just that quality. Unless, of course, you put Metal Gear Portable Ops anywhere near the bottom, you're doing something wrong. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Metal Gear Solid 3, when I played it, was definitely my favorite at the time. There's something so... Because, first of all, it's the start. It's the prequel. It is the earliest in the timeline that I think we ever get.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Game-wise.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's something about, like, it's just a clean slate. It's not a new character, but it's the beginning of a character that we've seen very little of. Naked Snake, soon to be Big Boss. The character dynamics work so well. They're introduced nice and clear. You kind of follow the tropes of, secret agent, double, what's real, what's not, mentor, and then goes back into secret agent, double agent, triple agent.
Yeah.
And then I think what you were talking about with the Patriots, they've been dead for 100 years.
Right.
I think the bombshell at the end of 3 is what really cooked mine.
Right. That's a good one too. Yeah. No.
I think that one I was like, oh wow, I did not see this coming at all. The music is phenomenal. The set pieces, you're outside a lot of the time. I also played it first with free camera. Looks great, gorgeous. The gameplay systems. You have to bandage yourself, and you have to do it in the right way.
I did like the healing and the camouflage. I know it's maybe annoying to go into those menus all the time, but I thought it made it feel more survivally than any of the other games. Just eat a ration and you're healed.
I just wanted a faster way to do it.
But I'm gonna be honest, even though it was one of my favorite games, it couldn't have ended there because it went back to the past. But now we have so many more questions about the past, and we still have all the questions about the future.
I agree.
Well, it's great. It's each game keeps making you beg for more. But what did you think, Rat?
I'm almost about to say it could have ended there.
Really?
It was that good. I think it was such a high mark. I'm not saying that, but it almost could. If they had ended it there, we could have drawn the conclusions about the rest, But I also feel like 3 was Kojima saying, fine, you just want to be Snake again and do the exact same thing? Okay, here it is, the exact same thing.
He's right. He's right. I did. Thank you.
Exactly, and that's not bad. I love 3. I think it's a great game. Like, if I'm giving Metal Gear Solid 2 a 10 out of 10, I'm giving Metal Gear Solid 3 a 9.95. Like, it's just below it. It's just below it.
I don't want it to be 10.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is the things in it. I mean, series wise, if I have to rank them, if you guys,
Such a good game.
it's so good.
I do think, I don't know. I feel like all the boss fight. I don't think there's a boss fight in Metal Gear Solid 2 that compares to 3.
Yeah, you're right, but 2 to me does other things. It's not just about the boss. It's the story to me is really what takes 2. I think it could have ended. I think. And for me, my issues coming up, if it ended here, we would have missed some of them. We would have missed some stuff, but we also wouldn't have seen some of the bigger falls that I think really hurt the brand.
You say falls that hurt the brand. I say highlights of the entire game.
Here we go.
We'll get onto that. Before we do, though, I agree with both of these gentlemen. I think so good. It makes us look back on the entire series. Big Boss had been just a bad guy up to that point, and you just have this new context for this character, saying, "Oh, he wasn't always like this." We maybe don't see how he quite got to where he was at the start of Metal Gear, his legacy in Metal Gear Solid. But we saw, hey, he was a man who was idealistic, and by the end of that, he's hollow. Yeah. But if it weren't for the fact that Metal Gear Solid 2 introduced so much and needed so much to be followed up on. I think that Metal Gear Solid 3 could have satisfyingly ended the series.
I think Metal Gear Solid 3 could have been a standalone game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Without the Metal Gear tie?
Without the Metal Gear tie-ins. I think it works because you know all of it, the tropes and stuff, but I think if you just look at it as a self-contained thing, it's classic. You're out there in the jungle, you're a tool of the US government, you're sent there to do a mission, it just follows that great structure.
But it still has to be clearly Kojima. Like, he still has to do it.
Yeah.
Because it needs that like goofiness, kind of like 13-year-old humor, but also like these big conspiratorial themes.
But I just think I think where it comes in the series can't be the last game, but if it were to be by itself, one and done. Right?
Yeah.
Wow, what a good game. What else has this guy got?
I agree.
Well, let's talk about a game that in no way could be standalone. Metal Gear Solid 4.
Oh boy.
Guns of the Patriots.
You mean the second game of the series?
The second game in the series for Crash and the Boys.
It was basically standalone for what I played it.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about that first experience, going into that with little to no context?
I know people hate how long it took to install. I would uninstall that game just so I could install it again, just to see Snake smoke, and just to get those commercials. Because,
those were good, yeah.
Wow. What? Okay, Metal Gear Solid 3, classic. Snake here every single time you start it up. It's like an anime intro. You're not going to skip it. You're just going to listen to it all.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 4 is just... And people are always like, oh, that crazy Kojima, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're over-exaggerating until it gets to Metal Gear Solid 4.
Right.
In which case it's like, everything that they say about him is true.
Yeah.
It is that crazy.
Well, yeah, I agree. One thing I do want to say, though, considering what you were just talking about, the David Hayter interview. Okay?
Yes.
I tweeted that. I tweeted out, I tagged him, David Hayter, and I said, I was basically like, oh, thank you, David Hayter, for having a message of hope for our youths, whatever. And he replied and said, I actually never said that. I'll find it, and maybe I'll put that on the Instagram. I'm going to try and find that. But he responded to me, or he liked it or something.
David Hayter view when?
David Hayter. Yeah. Oh!
Yeah.
That's the only way you're gonna top Proud Mama Bear and Big Butcher.
David Hayter view.
David Hayter view. Coming to you, Ratcon 2035. Yeah.
If you know David Hayter, now don't bug him on Twitter. But if you know him or if you know someone who does, let Ratnado know, please. This needs to happen.
We need an in, folks. We need an in.
No, Metal Gear Solid 4 works. I don't know how. I feel like it's kind of like watching, one of those later Marvel movies, like an Endgame or Infinity War, without seeing all the ones before, because you're like, it's a lot.
Yeah, what's going on here?
I don't get it, but I get it. Because I didn't get it, but I got it.
Yeah.
We're going back to Shadow of Moses. I was like, it's basically again Captain America. I get this reference.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else was just like, sure.
Except for any Metal Gear Solid 3 references. Because you ejected the third game by hand, didn't you?
My favorite thing, one of my favorite things is you get to that Psycho fight. I forget what the boss was. It's not Psycho.
It's Laughing Octopus.
No, the one at the end with the puppets.
Oh, right. Yeah. With the yeah. I know what you're talking about.
You switch the DualShock controller to 4.
Oh my gosh.
4 or whatever. Snake, that's not gonna work. It's wireless. You can't use the Bluetooth device. Oh my god! Because that's like it's played. Because you're like, oh, I know Kojima.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this, and it's like, oh, actually, you can't do that. So it's just like what I was saying earlier. It's like
callbacks.
It's callbacks, but it's also a raising of the stakes and raising of messing with player expectations. Yeah. Because you mess with players on a meta level to where they expect to be messed with. So they change something, and you're like, oh, you thought that.
Yeah.
But actually, no. So it's like, it's genius. It's so good. Yeah. Metal Gear Solid 4 is an impossible game.
Yeah.
There will never be another game like Metal Gear Solid 4. Not even from Kojima, not from anyone else. It's so wholly unique to itself. Nothing else. No one would even want another game where the ending cutscene is 68 minutes long, where it's so many complex systems, all this stuff. But it's perfect for what it is, and it knows exactly what it needs to be, and it does it. And I think it does it phenomenally well. I love every single aspect of it. I love the iPod, I love the eye patch, I love all the boss fights, I love the callbacks, I love what is it? Is that Proud Mama in it? With Big Mama? Big Mama. Big Mama coming back. I love all the different set pieces. It's so good. Everyone always quotes war. War never changes.
Yeah.
I'm one of those who quotes war has changed. It's no longer about nations' ideologies.
Gotta get the rumble in there.
Exactly. It's so good. It's such a
War has changed.
That Dolby.
I'm gonna say right now, I think Metal Gear could have ended with Metal Gear Solid 4, just because it raises the stakes and just the completeness of it so much that it doesn't really feel like there's a real way to go from there.
Yeah.
I was wrong because we'll get to it when we get to it, but I think it definitely could have ended with Metal Gear Solid 4. You have the original trilogy, Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
Then you have the next trilogy, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 4. A little weird with the naming conventions, but I think it would have worked as 2 separate trilogies, really connecting from Big Boss all the way to Big Boss.
Right.
Like that. I think it works really well. The tunnel sequence, definitely a fitting end for Solid Snake, Old Snake. And I'm glad that we never go back.
Yeah.
It feels right that they leave it all though.
He's off.
But like we said with Metal Gear Solid 3, you have more questions about Big Boss, which we will get to.
Yeah.
So I thought that since they continued on in the right way.
Right.
And continued that storyline because there was, I think, more there that was worth telling.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree.
But Metal Gear Solid 4 could have been the end of it and would have left everybody very confused and very happy.
It got me. Squad Cobbler?
So, if there was one word I could use to describe Metal Gear Solid 4, it's excessive.
Yes.
Now, I was very well prepped for this game. When I first started the series, I was told, hey, the cutscenes, they're a lot. He wanted to be a director. He made games instead. They get worse until 4, and then 4 is just the most it ever was, and then they start to scale back from there. So I'm like, all right, so 4 is basically like watching a movie. Got it. I went in knowing that, and even so, it's just everything that I like about it, I wish they would have dialed it back just a little bit, and it would have been the perfect amount. Everything that I didn't like about it was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah. However, this game kept me more engrossed than any of the others. I beat it in a matter of weeks, whereas the first one I beat in about a month. Second one I beat over a few months. Third one, I even that one I took pretty slow, maybe 2 months or so to beat. This one, yeah, I breezed right through it. I was playing it almost every day.
To be fair, though, you did stream the first 3, but you decided not to stream the 4th.
I only streamed the entirety of Metal Gear Solid 1. I streamed a couple segments of Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4, but never in its entirety.
Oh, okay.
Now, as far as would this have been a good ending for the series, yes, I think this was the most appropriate the end. And even though it's a lot, it addresses everything that came before and then some, ties it in a nice little bow. There aren't really lingering questions for me at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. And that's the last one I've played at this point in time. So I'm looking forward to, maybe going back, seeing some more stuff developed. And then even there's some spin-off sequels to it that continue the storyline a bit. But with Solid Snake being one of my favorite characters, for one, it's a hard game to play because he's just miserable and suffering the entire time, and that's hard. That's hard. I like I said, I like playing as Snake over Raiden, but it doesn't make me feel as bad to play as Raiden because he's young and healthy.
So basically, you just like playing Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, exactly. My prime Snake is Metal Gear Solid 1 Snake.
Not even Metal Gear 2.
Now, if the game didn't have the ending that it did, and it has multiple endings, I'm talking about the graveyard specifically. If you know, you know. We'll just say, spoiler warning, Metal Gear Solid 4 from here on out. When he meets Big Boss, and they have that reunion, I do think it goes on too long. I think if it was maybe 5 minutes shorter, would have been perfect.
Squat, you didn't love 0 becomes 1. 1.
No,
becomes 2.
I thought it was a little silly that he unplugged a geriatrics life support.
He brought him there for that.
And that saved the world.
It's so
Now,
good. It's
now,
such a good game.
now,
It's so
for as
good.
much as I was whatever on that, when he Big Boss is succumbing to Fox Die, he grabs Snake and he says,
The world would be better off without snakes.
oh.
Oh,
I felt that. I felt that. Because Solid Snake, David Snake, he does so much. He's suffered for so long trying to save the world at the cost of himself. And, if the world didn't need him, he could have lived a happy life. But at the same time, he wouldn't have existed if the world didn't need Solid Snake. So it's a great send-off, like they were saying. I as well am glad. From what I understand, they never go back to Solid Snake. They never really give it a definitive hey, here's what happened. That's the end of Solid Snake as it stands. Great final shot. Great final ending to the Metal Gear Solid story, except it wasn't.
I feel like, real quick, it's a lot like the Lord of the Rings in that way.
Oh yeah.
Where a lot of people complain about it just goes on and on in the ending, but I'm on the camp where
But each one hits.
I
Each one hits.
think it deserves every single second
Of the ending that it chooses to tell.
Yeah.
I think it, because over the course of the entire series, the years, decades of history, it's like, no, if it would have ended there, it deserves that complete send off.
I would have taken 13 more minutes of Legolas's and Frodo's ending.
I would have taken 13 more minutes of Meryl's wedding with Johnny.
No.
I wanted to see their wedding night and him get the runs.
Oh no!
Johnny is the worst Metal Gear character.
We're all just agreeing, so I'm gonna say that having talked about this and knowing everything else, if let's say you have to pick somewhere for it to end, I mean you guys don't have to because there's no incentive not to, but if I had to do it somewhere, I just realized now that 4 is pretty superfluous to me.
Really?
Superfluous?
Yeah.
Like you don't need it?
I don't need it.
So it could have ended. So it could have ended at 3 for you.
It could have ended at 3. I'm saying it. Saying it with my chest.
Okay, that may change with the upcoming discussions, but as it stands right now, 3 for Ratnado is a good ending. 4 for me and Crash. Okay, continuing on.
Yeah.
Crash and the Boys.
Yes.
By all means, introduce this next one.
Next game is not a mainline entry, but it did come on the HD collection, and I think it is one of the most important games in the series, and I think it deserves a place on the main line. And that is Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker. My favorite game, and where I think it should have ended.
Your favorite game, period.
My favorite game of the series.
Of the series, okay.
I think Metal Gear Solid 4 really wraps up all the stories. But like I said, in Metal Gear Solid 3, we get a new side of Big Boss. Or, Naked Snake becoming Big Boss.
Right.
And I think that there's a little bit more there to explore. I think the fact that it is on a portable system as the main release gives it a little bit less, quote unquote import. You don't think of it. It's a little downplayed.
Yeah.
And I think it really works well as like a epilogue, like a denouement. Just like it has its own story.
Yeah.
But it's just like, breathe, take a breather. It's not as intense. It's not as intensive. It's not heavy. But it's enough to like where it's like it's telling something important.
Yeah.
But it's enough to just take a breath.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I know Naked Snakes. I know Big Boss. Oh, perfect story, perfect send off. Beautiful. I think they could have ended with Peace Walker.
Peace Walker is beautiful. You had even just like the comic book storytelling, so good. The red of pauses.
Yes.
Oh, it's all so good. And it is. I think that is the perfect example of what a Big Boss story should be. Just ultra melancholy, ultra sad, but it tries to be goofy. It's trying to do something. And to me, that's another reason I like Big Boss so much, is because he's just a little more complex. Snake is just like, I'm the best, and I love Snake, the Solid Snake. I'm the best, I'm gonna save the world, I'm gonna do what I have to do.
Snake's funny.
Yeah.
He's kind of snarky.
He's snarky.
Whereas Big Boss is funny.
He's a geek.
kind of goofy.
Yeah, he's a nerd.
He's funny. And that game also, I feel like, takes itself I don't say takes itself the least seriously, but I do think it has maybe the smallest. While it's still nuclear stakes, it feels like the smallest stakes of the series.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't feel like it has the import.
Sure.
This is it. All this
it's
stuff.
pretty self-contained, and
again, I think that goes back to the handheld console. By not having a mainline number, not being Metal Gear Solid 5, it is a side story.
And knowing that 5 is coming, probably Kojima in his mind is like, well, this is what's going to happen there.
But I don't I think it should end here because I don't think we need 5, and I think it's a perfect thing where if you want to see it, you have it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, it can end with 4 for you.
Yeah.
And for me, being my favorite game is I want to see this, I want to play this.
Yeah.
This is perfect. It really gives me a sense of closure, and I absolutely adore it. It is my favorite game. I think the gameplay story mix, the building of Mother Base, and especially the characters in it. I think it's my favorite rendition of Miller. I absolutely adore Paz.
So good.
And it's one of those things as well, which you see a lot in 5, is that it kind of has as much as you want endings, as much as you put into it, because it has secret endings.
Yeah.
Where if you keep playing, you get more and more out of it. It's the game where I think the more you put in, the more you get out. Whereas with other games, it's like, okay, well, if you want to, play the game without being seen,
sure.
If you want to play the game not killing anybody,
all have that.
That's what I'm saying. They all have that. You get different code names, you get different infinite ammo, all that stuff. But with Peace Walker, it's like, okay, you just keep pouring time in, and we'll keep revealing more and more and more.
Sure.
And I think when it gets to, that's the one with Heaven's Divide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What an ending.
Yeah.
And you see the tragedy of Big Boss and what he's trying to accomplish, without the spectacular failure of the next games in the series.
Yeah, and I think, what are we going to say? You're saying it should have ended at Peace Walker to Final. Squad, can we get just a guess of what you think Peace Walker and 5 are before I jump into them?
I mean, I know you play as Big Boss in both of them. I know more than I probably should, just because I haven't actively pursued them. I'm not upset about any spoilers that I've gotten, but from what I've gathered, I know that you're growing closer and closer to the boss that Solid Snake fights in Metal Gear 1. There's a lot of cameos by people who will appear later in the series as their younger selves or as parents of them.
Yeah.
I imagine that they make bigger and better Metal Gears somehow, even though Rex was the greatest Metal Gear ever made by a mile at that time. So I don't really know how that's supposed to work. But
Helanthropist, Squat's talking about you.
It's I don't know. I'm looking forward to playing them. I intend to play them both by the end of the year. It's just, no matter when I have the chance to.
I think if you're going to continue on after 4, you push through to 5, because that is effectively the death of the game. And basically, you said the failure that was 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. I was specifically talking about
Portable?
the big boss's failure.
Oh,
That story aspect.
but that's true though. I mean, that's where it has to end up. 5.
I think you already get that.
Yeah,
It can't continue in Peace Walker.
Right. That's
You need to see the blowout.
because you know what's going to happen eventually. I think Ground Zero is tight. I think it's really good. I think it's super cool. It's really good. And then you can play that game like that is kind of the perfect. Oh yeah, I thought we were done.
Oh, well,
I was done with Peace Walker.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Okay, one thing real quick about Peace Walker.
Go.
Is that I had played it with the HD collection.
Right.
I loved it so much. I found it at Target for like $10 on PSP. I didn't have a PSP. I bought it and immediately went and spent like $60 to get a PSP just so I could keep playing it. I played it on the PSP a lot. I would walk to work from my college dorm.
Yeah.
And I would just be listening to the tapes
As you're going.
Yes.
You felt like Snake.
It felt like the premier way to play it. It works better on a handheld console than on the PS3.
But I mean, like you were playing the tapes while you were running around and doing stuff.
Or walking.
Yeah.
And I was
you were peace walking.
While I was peace walking, I would listen about the burgers of Kazuhiro Miller.
Yes!
And then we'll get to my most hot take that I've never saw.
All right.
When we get there.
All right. Cool.
Ground Zero shouldn't have ended there.
No.
I loved it. But like I think like with Metal Gear Solid 2 with the Taker chapter with the plant, Metal Gear Solid 3, Virtuous Mission, Main Mission, for all these things, I think 5, it's split between 2 games, the opening mission and the main mission.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
And I think people got a little bummed because they spent $30 on it. I think it was worth
it. Was worth it.
I mean, people already paid a full price game to get Zone of the Enders.
Yes, just for a demo.
Just for the demo.
Exactly.
So like, now they can't pay like $30 just to get quote-unquote the demo.
I get it.
Pour so much time into that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think Metal Gear Solid 5, both Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain, have the best gameplay of the entire series. I think it's really good. It's basically like Peace Walker, but really expands on it and makes it a home console version. And it's some of the most, what's the word? Not divergent. Dynamic gameplay.
Yes.
There's something about...
Controls are incredible.
But it's like, maybe it is emergent gameplay. Yeah. Where you're going through a base in like Russia, you have like Rebel Yell on, you're sneaking around, and then all of a sudden an enemy sees you, so you stand up, you try to take them out, but they can't. And now you're running around, a copter gets called in, you pull out your missile, you fire, it's beautiful, just the way it can happen. You maybe call in required or something. Yeah. It's a phenomenal gameplay. Yeah. They really took to heart like the lack of cutscenes, but people were like, "There's not enough cutscenes now." Yeah. But it goes back to those tapes, which is why I think this is my thing. I think Metal Gear Solid 5 would have been much better received. Would have been received so much better. Yeah. If it was out on the Switch. I think having it as a portable and console go back and forth between the two would have made it be way better received. You could have taken it, listened to those tapes, played it, just opened it up, done a little mission, because some of those missions are pretty cool. Yeah. You don't need that. And like you're in the helicopter, you're on the move, you're on a plane, Snake's sitting in the helicopter. Yeah. I think it would have worked rather than, okay, well I have to go sit down on my PS3, PS4, open it up, wait, load, all that stuff. I think you could have just gotten in, open it up, it was suspended, you start playing,
you do your thing,
do a little mission, take down a little base. I think it really would have worked in that game.
I agree, yeah.
Because, again, it's a lot like Peace Walker, which was originally a port.
Right. I made a comparison really quick in my head just a minute ago. Peace Walker is to Metal Gear Solid 5 what Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is to Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I'm going to take Crisis Core once I finish Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, they have, and that's the thing is that they have this system. It's a really good system, and then we ported it into something a little bit bigger. The problem was 5 misses a lot on the cutscenes. Plaidman, like he says, I mean, I get the hate for it, but the game handles so well. It feels so good. You can do so many things. And the name, without giving too many spoilers, I can do this without spoiling, Squat. No, the thing about Metal Gear Solid 5 is it is a great ending story in a meta sense. In the sense of something that maybe feels unfinished, something that feels like even the story, I'll just, the Phantom Pain, that has a lot to do with how the game ends, how Metal Gear Solid 5 ends. And I do say this to Plaid, like joking.
Every night, I can feel my leg and my arm Even my fingers. The body I've lost. The comrades I've lost. Won't stop hurting. It's like they're all still there. You feel it too, don't you?
But it kind of is supposed to be that. There is a phantom pain. What have we lost?
Yeah.
What? There's supposed to be more here.
There's something there.
There's
It's
something
not.
there.
I can feel it. I know there's more mission.
I know there's something. I know there's a story.
I see the concepts art. I know there's more.
There are conclusions to this.
Can I share something?
Yes.
This is just a bad habit in my regular life. I'm bad about finishing things. I still haven't finished Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, because I want to do everything.
Yeah.
And then I lost my PS3. I was.
We don't need to
he
get up
suffered
to-
a loss, so I could gain an entry to Metal
I
Gear.
was in a bad place. I needed to move across the country, and I was like, I gotta lighten up a little.
It was the best $40 I ever spent, and I appreciate it, Crash.
And it's good. It's helped me move on, but I am getting another PS3 just so I can play Metal Gear Solid and Dragon Ball 3. Literally just that. I still have my hard drive, so I can play it again, and I will play it again. I'll finish it.
Right.
It's unfortunate, but that's where Metal. Well, actually, no. There's one more in the series. Metal Gear Survive.
I thought we weren't doing mainline. Well, at that point, we might as well do Rising
I-
Revenge.
That's the joke.
That's the joke. It's a bit. It's a do.
I do like Survive.
I don't want to play it.
I don't like
play
it, but I have fun with it.
I don't want to play it without Kojima. I haven't finished Death Stranding either because I'm bad about finishing things, but I feel like it might be the end of something.
Yeah. Well, and it's the Fox engine.
Yeah.
And that makes it fun to me. Sure. I can pretend I'm actually.
But the only thing is, if you know, you know. Big Boss's story is kind of not relevant to Metal Gear Solid 5.
No.
And that's why I think Peace Walker is a better end.
I'm looking at Squat. What does that mean? What could it mean?
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Punished Snake is not as interesting a character as Big Boss, in my opinion.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I agree at that point.
So that's why I think, like I said, the seeds of what was going to happen to is it Diamond Dogs in Peace Walker?
Diamond Dogs.
Or is Diamond Dogs Outer Haven? Basically, what's going to happen to Outer Haven?
Yeah.
Is it Diamond Dogs?
No.
What's the game to them? I can't remember.
Militaire Sans Frontières.
As like a mercenary.
Yeah.
I think you already see the destruction in Peace Walker, and I think 5 kind of just expands upon it and it brings in some interesting characters and concepts and stuff. But like I said, Big Boss's story was basically already done, and I'm not interested in the story of Punished Snake.
The meta narrative around it with Kojima is why I like 5. I unironically like Metal Gear Solid 5.
It's great.
Yeah. It's missing something.
And I haven't finished it yet. I'm too scared to finish
cut
it.
It's worth it. You just gotta finish it.
I'm trying to cloud it. I'm trying to get 100% of everything, and that takes forever.
Yeah.
I put like 90 hours into it. And I'm like 40% done.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, I think it's a great game. Give it a chance. Squat. Even if you don't play you should play Peace
I'm going to play both. I'm going to end with Metal Gear Solid 5. I don't really have... If I have a hankering, I'll play some of the other well-regarded spin-offs, but I'm not...
Rising Revengeance, just for the memes.
The memes of Rising Revengeance is enticing, but I feel like I get them watching Plaid play.
You can already play Revenge.
I was too bad at video games to play Revengeance, but now I've beaten Dark Souls and all these other games, and not that they're actually I'm better at pressing the right buttons at the right time now. So I feel like I could finally maybe actually parry.
Right, yeah.
Because that dog just kept chewing me out. And I was like, I cannot beat this game, I gotta return it. Still love the soundtrack. Great soundtrack.
So good. Oh man. Okay, sorry. What's up?
Going back to the original topic, Ratnado, do you think... I mean, it essentially, for all intents and purposes, is the end, but do you think Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, is a fitting end to the series?
For me, yes. For Metal Gear Solid, artistically, and for the world, no.
I'm glad it ended at 5 because I got so many Metal Gear Solid games.
Yeah.
I think artistically, maybe 4 could have been it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad because, again, Peace Walker is my favorite game, but I feel like there were better narrative... kind of this makes sense.
Yeah.
PS3 being a swan song,
right.
Jazz.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I would say 3. If I have to say somewhere, just for what's the best for the story. Because imagine, okay, Metal Gear Solid 1. Oh my god, I can't wait for the next one. Metal Gear Solid 2. That was a disappointment. Well, there's so many big things.
What's your favorite game?
I'm talking about people. I'm talking about the brand. Metal Gear Solid 3. Oh my god, the best game ever. This series is amazing. What Kojima can do no wrong for anime. Long cutscenes. This and that, If you had to cut it somewhere and leave people wanting more and clamoring for more, 3. 3 is where it ends.
My enjoyment peaked at 3. If it wasn't for Metal Gear Solid 2 introducing so much, I would agree 3 would be the best ending. But for me, it's 4 because of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
The entire series is basically the meme of the one wrestling guy with the freaking out with the eyes and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's like each game is just
right.
I'm Peace Walker. And I was like, goes back down to $2.
Right. Wow, I learned some stuff there that I didn't even know I believed. That was interesting.
Yeah. New appreciation. New thoughts. Real quick though, just crank them out. Order.
Ooh, just the ones we talked about. Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker 4, 5.
I would go, and here's the thing. It could change any day. So actually right now, I'm feeling Metal Gear Solid 4, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 5.
Wow.
It changes every day.
So tomorrow may be different.
It will.
My incomplete mainline ranking would be Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 4.
Ooh.
You get naked, and it enhances the stealth.
He's not wrong.
It's so good. You did little backflips, and you're covering your junk. Metal Gear Solid 2 is like so good.
When it told me to turn off my game console, I wish I was streaming that because I flipped out.
Turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
No, I wish you were.
I've never had a reaction like that playing a game. All right. Thank you, Crash and the boys, for joining the Scrollies podcast. It's been a great time here at Ratcon. We're having a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm Ben Squat Carver of the Scrollies podcast, joined by my co-host.
It's Team Radnado, twitch.tv/Team Radnado, and I'm dummy thick.
And our guest, anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I'm Crash and the Boys. You can check out my website, www.thedoobie.com. It's just where I post things. You can also check me out at Letterboxd at Ignitus, I think. IGNITUS. It's a Spyro reference.
He feels passionately about films. You get the hot takes, you get the cold takes, but they all come from the heart.
I love things wholeheartedly and enthusiastically, and I love writing about how much I love things.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us today. Next week, we will be joined by special guest Samsonite D, talking a very passionate topic for a couple of our contributors.
Cat, don't kill me.
Yeah, it's been recorded, everyone. Just get ready. Just get ready. All right. That'll be all for today. I've been Squat Cobbler, and I'll see ya.
Bye.